I'm a big fan of arcade-style action games, and there's a new one called Iron Crypticle that's thrown its hat into the ring on consoles and PC. But does this game end up being a true treasure, or should we just leave it locked up in the crypt? Iron Crypticle is a twin-stick shooter arcade-style game that's similar to the classic Smash TV and a little bit like The Binding of Isaac. The game can be played up to 4 players local multiplayer, though honestly I still had a blast playing it by myself. You go from room to room facing an endless supply of monsters until you make it to the end of the floor facing off with a boss, defeating it, and then moving on to the next floor. The game starts off with just the new game option, but once you're able to complete that by beating the 4 floors included, you unlock the New Game Plus, where things really start to get interesting. Similar to The Binding of Isaac, when you beat the game for the first time, New Game Plus adds a couple of extra floors and overall tougher difficulty, as well as being able to increase your stats a bit farther than you were in the original game. Every floor is broken up into a lot of different rooms, and the farther you make it in, you'll have even more rooms on the floors you make it to. And it changes up every time you play, so of course it's a new experience each time. There's a bunch of themed rooms that you're able to make it to, mini-boss rooms, and of course the boss rooms at the end. There's also a couple of other rooms, such as the shop, where you'll be able to buy a small selection of items using the coins you've collected, as well as the arcade. Here you're able to play a very small arcade game, which is a 2D side-scroller where you're running away from a giant wall trying to crush you, and you can collect some extra coins and cakes throughout it to increase your health, as well as of course earn that extra bit of money. The game has a decent variety of enemy types, though I do wish there were a few more thrown into the mix. There are a couple of slightly harder versions and palette swap type of enemies that you'll deal with a little bit farther in, and the game increases in difficulty, of course, the farther you make it. Every time you defeat an enemy, there's a chance they're going to be dropping an item, and there's a large variety of different item types they can potentially drop. Of course, you can get hearts that you'll be able to replenish your health, but a lot of times you'll be getting food items. Grabbing these will give you points, but if you're able to combo a good amount of food items in a row without taking damage or taking too long, it'll actually increase the multiplier, which will increase, of course, the score you end up getting. But if you're able to get it up to that ×8 multiplier and keep grabbing food, you get the potential for stat upgrades to drop. You can also buy stat upgrades at the stores when you're able to make it to these, but the best way in possibly getting them is by increasing that multiplier so that you're able to get more throughout the course of the levels. These include increasing your range of your attacks, the rate of fire, your movement speed, and of course your attack damage. You have an infinite number of throwing axes at your disposal, but you also get other weapons that you'll be able to pick up for a limited amount of time in order to really take down massive amounts of enemies, and there's a good variety of them here, but unfortunately you only start off with 2, and as you complete runs, get farther into the game, defeat bosses and the like, you'll unlock more weapons that potentially could show up on your next run, and the same goes for some of the other items that you're able to find throughout the course of your runs. Along with these extra weapons, there's also magic scrolls you'll be able to find to cast spells, such as dropping a series of bombs all over the place or give you a brief bit of invincibility, as well as your atomic fist. Using this, as you start off with 1, basically works as a bomb, though unfortunately it only hits a small radius around your character, but it does clear it of enemies, though it doesn't damage the bosses, though you can find more atomic fists throughout the course of the runs and even buy some from shops. One of the highlights usually in a game like this is with the boss encounters, and this game does a decent enough job with them. There's actually different versions of the bosses that you'll be able to face, some of which you'll only see on harder difficulties, and with the New Game Plus, the bosses that you face on the second to last and final level of the game, if you're able to make it that far, are easily the best boss encounters the game has to offer. Along with the main game and New Game Plus, there's also the Endless Survivor mode that you can go into, facing wave after wave of enemies, as well as there's also the lore. Every time you find a new item, it goes into the lore book, and then you can look at it and get a little bit more information on that particular item, which I thought was a nice little addition. From the technical side of things, the game ran smoothly. I didn't run into major glitching, crashing, or slowdown of any sort. Iron Crypticle is available now for $9.99 on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. It does feature a full trophy list on the PlayStation 4, and if you're good at these styles of games, you'll probably have no problem getting the Platinum. In fact, it took me a little bit less than 3 hours in order to get it. Overall, Iron Crypticle is a great little action arcade style of game, and with the multiplayer thrown in, it's a lot of fun if you're going to have friends that can come over and help you play through it, and it has that relatively low price point. I do wish there was a bit more variety to the enemy types and bosses, and maybe a few more unlockables here and there, but it'll probably take you a while in order to get everything in the lore book. With everything said, I'm going to be giving Iron Crypticle an 8 out of 10. But anyway guys, this is going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course I hope you enjoyed.